Dear improvisers of the world, my name is Jakash Kapin. I'm the current producer of The Well, and welcome back to In Conversation, our monthly series of interviews with members of our community. This one is under the theme of. What was the theme again? So, if I remember correctly, it was music pathways to social change. Okay, we're gonna break that down in a little bit. As always, this is also your invitation to join The Well at thewellvocal.com, to keep coming back to the website, to add your events, and to check the resources page and see what awaits you there. I'm currently in quite autumny, almost wintry Finland, and I'm very happy to chat to Joni and Rita today. She's joining us all the way from Kitchener in Canada, and I think it's time to see if she's online and ready to chat with us. Okay, so calling Joni, let's see if she is ready. Ding dong, tumba. Hello.
How
Can
are
you
you?
hear
I
that?
can hear you.
Okay, we're very far apart geographically, but I feel very close to you. We just had like sort of a chat before, and we were talking about what we're gonna mention, and I love your background already. It kind of fits my jumper. I think that's a
It's
start for us.
a good start, right?
It is. How are you doing today?
I am good. It's also fall in here in Canada, but it has been really a mild fall so far. And there's been so much beautiful sunlight. So with the trees changing and seeing the light come through, all the colors, it's like really beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, similar to second time in Finland, and I'm really, really enjoying it. I'm so much enjoying it that I almost forgot the title of our chat. But I think I almost forgot because we kind of changed
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
molded it, and just to know how to phrase things. So the end, it is music pathways to social change. Welcome to In Conversation. Firstly, for people that don't know you, let's just start with you as a musician, as a person. Maybe kind of tell us your background in improvisation, when it came into your life, and maybe how did it start to relate to this concept of social change, social justice for you?
Hmm. Well, I guess I would say I came to improvisation through jazz because I studied jazz in school. And for those of you who have also done so, or even are just fans of jazz, you know that improvisation is a big part of the language. But it's a different kind of improv. Yeah, it's over um, changes, over chords, and trying to highlight that you understand what's happening harmonically, and you are yeah, just highlighting beautiful harmonies that are in the changes already, a sharp four, a sharp nine, blah blah blah. So that's where I come from in terms of improvisation. And I honestly, I found it terrifying when I was studying it in school because I came from like an R&B and pop background, reggae. My parents are Jamaican. So improvisation in that way wasn't really on my, like, yeah, it wasn't really on my radar. And I found that, yeah, it was just pretty stressful feeling like, okay, you're in, your classroom and everyone is ready for you to do your thing and you are being judged and judged and judged and judged. So yeah, I feel like improvisation, my initial explorations into it felt like a lot of judgment, not just from teachers and professors and classmates, but also from myself, feeling like, I'm so new at this, I don't know. Um, and I think a lot of the insights or the wisdom from improvisation as a way of being didn't really land until way after I left school and started having a life as a musician and as a singer. We did study Bobby McFerrin quite a bit back then. So he became an influence long ago. Um, and I think as I started to grow as a singer songwriter who was not really doing jazz all the time. Sometimes I was doing R&B, sometimes I was doing my own songs, but learning to have like a room even in within a fixed form to leave room for space for other things to happen. I definitely gravitated towards that. Room for musicians to make the song their own, a bit more room for a section of a song to be repeated or to be extended if that's what felt right for the moment. So just giving myself permission in general to have more space and more less fixed things is sort of how it started in terms of beyond jazz. And then I got a bunch of loopers. I've had pretty much every looper you can imagine over the years. And that was my way of I think like initially it was like when I was performing solo, I felt like I needed to have a groove or something to go along with it. So it was at first that was the focus, but then I quickly learned like, oh wow, yeah, having all these layers, muting things, bringing things in and out, that is a really cool thing to do just as an artistic practice. And when I discovered circle songs, I was like, wow, it's looping, but with people. This is very cool.
Mm, whole other thing.
But that,
It's a whole other thing then. When
it's a whole other thing. But honestly, so moving because, when you're looping, you can try as you might to have different qualities to your tone, be a little more raspy or a little bit brighter tone and all this, but essentially it's you, and it's it's very clear that it's all you. But having all the textures and yeah, the richness of other people's voices and other people's musical leanings is just really, yeah, I was very struck by that when I started diving into this world. And I think, improvisation just as a way of being, not only connected to music, but just as a human is important for me anyway.
mm,
Yeah.
yes, and then maybe let's get straight into this concept of, social change as we have it in the title, but also social justice and in the end, politics, really. So I wonder, I mean, sometimes, we see it as a part of everyday life. Sometimes we see it closely related to our music, sometimes not. It shifts and it wavers. Maybe before getting into, well, either kind of definition of what politics is for you, or kind of how your early political engagement, relates to music making and songwriting, and how do they coexist or coexist in the past for you?
Yeah. Well, I was telling you earlier, I'll recount this story again about how just after school, I I was playing a show, and this group came through. A few people, members of this group called the Coalition Against War and Racism, were at my show. And after the show, they were like, "Hey, we think you should join our collective. We're doing all this amazing political engagement, and da da da. You should join us." And I was sort of like, "Oh, I mean, tell me more. It sounds interesting. I'm not really sure that's my thing. I'm a musician." And they're like, "Exactly, you can provide the music, and you like you gather the people because they listen to your lovely music, and then we can go and hand out our little pamphlets and our leaflets and tell them about what what we're trying to change or what the latest campaign is and stuff." And so I was like, okay, that sounds interesting. And so I was with them for many years, and I even joined or started a younger version of that collective called Pueblo Unido, United People United, with some of my younger friends. And it was a way to, yeah, use music to talk about hard topics, but also for me, finding ways to make it still musical. We sing the song, you can still move to the song, and then there's also this message if you're really listening. And they were um, always telling me like, okay, for this next event that we have in 2 weeks, it's about this subject, so you got to write a song for that, and then in a month's time we've got another subject, so you got to write a song for that. So very early in my like development as a songwriter, I was being asked to produce music with this lens in mind, and I think it just stayed with me, yeah, throughout my career.
Wonderful. Yeah, it makes me kind of also then wonder this relationship between song, songwriting, and improvisation, and almost how it then transitioned from song to improvisation, later on when it started to be about these issues and, these things that we care about also interwoven in your improvisatory work. I guess also for some people that are listening, maybe they have a cause that they're passionate about, they have something that they want to include in their sessions, and maybe they have a question of how to do it. So maybe from your kind of example, your experience, what have you found that kind of works for you in terms of bringing in these political topics, questions of social justice, these intentions into our improvisatory practice with others?
You know, uh, I'll just say previously to the last couple of years, I kept them quite separate. There was Joni, the songwriter, who
Hmm.
was activist, social justice warrior, all those descriptors people put on me. And then there was educator, facilitator, and the worlds were not touching. They were very separate, yeah. Um, and eventually like it started to feel like, yeah, I don't want them to be separate, like I'm one human, so I need the worlds to come closer together. And as I was leaning more into vocal improv and more into music of the circle, I thought like this is a good way to maybe because it brings us closer to together, right, to sing together. It's a beautiful thing. Hearts are open, imaginations are open. It's fertile ground to maybe um, touch on some of these topics. So first was the noticing of that, and then allowing myself the permission to like explore that. So I'm still exploring, but I'll share what I've noticed so far. Um, One is that some people I notice specifically stay away from mentioning things that are happening in the world. Like, oh, how are you doing? How's the weather? Blah blah blah. Oh yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I had a latte today, and it's sunny outside. I will be like, yeah, all those things, and oh my goodness, this news about such and such really like impacted me, and I had to sit with it for a moment, and it made me feel really heavy. So having this I try to bring that awareness in of like what's happening in the world alongside the joy and the beauty of life. It's not one or the other. It's not either and. So I start just being able to say it casually, and you don't have to dwell, but just the saying it. You notice sometimes people are like, yeah. Because there's this elephant in the room, right? Someone mentions the elephant, they actually acknowledge the elephant, and people are like, "Oh, you see it too?" Okay. So I think sometimes you don't even have to do too much more than that. You've already just said, "Wow, this thing is happening in the world. Now let us sing together." And you've already, opened up that field of awareness and singing from that place. When I want to take it a little bit further than that, which would usually only be with a group that I'm seeing more than one time, I don't usually drop this in a one-off workshop, but in a group that I'm working with for a while, sometimes I'll have something where, let's say there's a circle song happening. I try to build it so if it's 4 bars, let's say the last bar is open. So 3 bars of something and then a space where there's not much happening musically, and in that space I might ask questions musically like, what is alive for you right now, or what is most important for you right now, what is an offering that you can give to the world to show up in a different way. So just asking questions, singing something, to asking the question, and then demonstrating in this space, that's where you can put the answer. And so but so that has I've done that. If I find that that works really well, because again, you're not necessarily having this long dialogue about the problem and getting into fights about who's right and who's wrong. It's just a place for people to say what they notice, what's alive for them, what how they feel they can contribute. Sometimes people say they don't think they can contribute at all, and that's valid if that's how you feel, you know? So just opening a space for dialogue. So that's, yeah, that's something that I've been playing with is, yeah, setting up a circle song and intentionally leaving space for people to share. And they can do it with speech, they can sing it. It depends on the person and the comfort level. But that's been working pretty nicely. Another thing that I've been doing that is from I learned through an organization that I worked with called Art Not Shame. It's called I will and I am and I will statements. So if you've been working together for, I don't know, an hour or two, or a week or two, or however long your sessions are, you at some point say to people, okay, so now that we've had all of this experience together, make a statement, a short statement. I am, you are what? I am willing to listen to understand. Uh, and I will blah, 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 blah. So they write down these statements on pieces of paper. You collect the pieces of paper. You set up a nice circle song. You have your little basket, and you can, like, you know, share what unfolded for people. And it's held by the music. So that's I did that a couple weeks ago, and that was really nice. There were a lot of tears.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Also, thank you for mentioning the whole idea of wholeness, and humanity of the facilitator, and how long it takes us to really bring the different strands together and to show up more as our full selves, also when we improvise, which is not an easy task at all. And it really takes
No.
one lifetime or maybe more. And to mention that for me, while doing Rhiannon's course all the way in, the improvisations that I remember most vividly are the ones that were intentional, that were towards a community or a cause, to something that was happening at the time, and
Mm,
after a political situation, and singing to that as a group is powerful. And
so
that's something
powerful.
that we can include, by ourselves or with others in our work. I want to transition towards Musica do Circolo since you already mentioned the approach that you're also
Mm,
trained in. I want to almost frame it within the context of socially engaged arts and just to kind of consider this idea of how many people and communities are moving from arts for art's sake or music for music's sake to socially engaged music, socially engaged arts. And what does that mean for you? So let's say for me, Musica do Circolo, the aims being our relational experience, a sense
mm,
of connection, that being primary and above other elements is a really important
mm.
to consider. What does that mean? So I almost want to ask you about, yeah, how you view this socially engaged lens in your work, in Musica do Circolo, and how important that is, or what, yeah, how that feels different to you rather than just being a songwriter, rather than just focusing on the music.
Yeah, it has been really transformational, I think. Uh, you heard this phrase? I'm sure you've heard this phrase, like decolonize your blah blah blah, right? Decolonize your practice, decolonize this, decolonize that. So I was hearing this for many years, and I was always like, it sounds cool, but I don't really know what that means for me. Like how would I decolonize my practice? What would that even look like? And I've got to say, Music of the Circle really helped me to discover what that means for me in a few ways. I'll talk about not the community aspect first. I'll talk first about the like what it did for me. This idea of being being the music, having it all like just in our bodies, making these sounds together, and not relying on harmonic instruments to accompany me, which is the world that I come from, right? Feeling free enough to make music that is imperfect because you're finding your way and you're making it up on the spot and you're trying to figure out some body percussion or this for me, yeah, it really helped change what I needed to have in place before I was willing to make music. So that's one thing that has been really beautiful. And the other thing is that in terms of the community aspect, yeah, it has been really wonderful to see how it changes people pretty quickly. You can literally witness, how they enter the circle with all these like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen. You can see the thoughts in the mind, right? And as you're going through your flow and going through the activities, you can see a little bit more of the risk taking. You can see the shy smile across the circle to someone they didn't know. And yeah, I think for Canada anyway, it's still pretty new of a concept to have participatory music making, or even, yeah, having blending the or blurring the lines between performer and audience is still pretty new. And sometimes people are sort of, well, why would you do that? Just sing your songs, let me sit back here and clap when you're finished, I don't want to be involved. you know um but I think people are hungry for it, because even if they have their shyness or their guard up at first, it seriously seems to be um, this need. People want connection. We're online all the time. We're bombarded with all this stuff all the time. There's AI, you know what I mean? Like, it's all too much. And I think when you come to the circle, whether it's for vocal improv or for music of the circle, this idea of all we have is each other in this moment, and we're choosing that actively. We're actively listening. We are putting away all of those things for a moment, and really getting into the body is a big part of music of the circle too. Um, Sometimes people come to my circles who are like, "Oh, I'm a lawyer, and I don't get into my body. Like, that's not where I live as a human." But to witness them experiencing what that is, and what it brings up for them. Sometimes there's tears, and deep sharing. I just think it's clearly needed, and there seems to be this therapeutic element to it that wasn't really on my radar when I studied with Musica de Circolo. I didn't have it in mind, but I hear this a lot from people, like, oh, this is therapy. I'm like, well, it's not really therapy, but I'm glad you feel better. So yeah, long story short, I think it's a need. There's this longing for human connection, and these practices obviously fill that need. And perhaps I hope that people continue even when they're not being led by a facilitator, that they maybe are brave enough to be like, hey, want to have a little vocal improv around the kitchen table. Like, I hope it spills into everyday life if we fast forward a decade or two down the line.
Yes, thank you. It also reminds me of where I'm actually here now in Finland. I'm here for a culture and health conference. So it's a European network which brings together, artists who work in health and care spaces. And there's some
Hmm.
wonderful stories about how artists, let's say musicians, get to then collaborate with the music therapist. And then we can really further discover this, maybe the therapeutic side of things, and how much we can learn from both sides in that collaboration. And also, when I was mentioning, socially engaged art, I also wanted to say it in a way that hopefully improvisers feel like they're part of a larger movement and we don't exist in a bubble. And we have this opportunity to now go out and see what else is going on and just to really engage with it. And might be in the health settings, might be, in community settings or on stage, doesn't really matter. Because I think, as you said, with improvisation, I think sometimes the initial risk is kind of higher, but I think the reward can be higher because of that, and
Exactly.
it's a thing, but you can really feel how improvisation puts you on the spot in a different way, and the circle can hold you. But I really think that the kind of pathway towards a connection, potentially also social change and other benefits can be also quicker. We at least access it in a different way because
I
of this
think
kind
so.
of initial investment that we need to bring to the space. So this is
Totally.
invitation for improvisers: go out, set up projects with music therapists, see what's happening in culture and health, arts and health, in all these different spaces, find collaborators and to also, yeah, just feel like we are part of a larger movement, which is trying to, just
Yeah. I think that this piece that you just mentioned of trying to find ways to collaborate with different sections of society is really important because it's kind of not on our radar until it is, right? For me, like I said, it wasn't on my radar until people started like asking me, "Oh, can you do Musica do Circolo in a prison?" Okay. Can you do Musica do Circolo at this retreat that is holding space for women who have experienced sexual violence? Okay. Like there's these ways of being together and holding space for people to reclaim a part of them that was lost or that was harmed, and we don't necessarily know how powerful it can be for non-musicians. We know what it does for us as improvisers, as singers, as musicians. But I think it can be helpful to really emphasize that these practices are super helpful for people who are not coming from a musical background.
Mhm.
It really sits alongside therapeutic practices really, really well. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to be teaching a class next week in the music therapy program at a university here in the next city over called Waterloo, and I'm doing Musica do Circolo in a music therapy class for fourth years. So yeah,
Yeah, and to again to also say that music for music's sake is also a wonderful thing. And
of course.
not for everyone, but I think keeping your awareness open to it and experiencing something like this, if you have been predominantly doing more so kind of performance or composition or just kind of writing and facilitation just for improvisers, I think it also teaches you an immense kind of list or bucket of things, even though then you might not do it all the time. And some people are really drawn to it, some people are really drawn to other areas, but this kind of intersection and awareness of it, I think it's really important to widen. Yeah, widen the scope of where improvisation exists. So you were mentioning some of your recent projects. Could you take us through any of the highlights of maybe the past year or the past summer, the projects that really fit within this lens of music and social change, and maybe describe some of the settings or some of the feedbacks or just something that stayed with you?
Yeah, there's been some really great things this summer. The project that I mentioned earlier, holding space for women who are survivors of violence. We were at a retreat just a couple weeks ago where I was there primarily as a Musica do Circolo facilitator, also as a songwriter. But it was cool to use improvisation as a way for people to like, oh, I have a voice and I can use it, and people are holding me even though I'm scared and I'm figuring it out on the spot. So that is really beautiful. And also just us as musicians jamming, making room for improvisation as a way to find songs. It ended up really being fruitful. There were there were some gems that came up through improvisation, and that was really, really beautiful to witness. Um, I did a songwriting workshop, which is not new for me. I've been doing songwriting workshops for like years, but I did it in a completely different way where we didn't talk about theory. We didn't really like. I came from a place of using improvisation as the way to discover what might be even alive in you to write about. So more of a an exploration and a place of discovery. And yeah, it was super cool. It was my first time doing a workshop, a songwriting workshop where I was using improvisation as the main thing. And I wasn't sure how it was going to land at all, as especially they weren't all musicians. Some of them are, fans of music, but they weren't necessarily songwriters professionally or anything, and they really enjoyed it. They even taped some of the improvisations that they made, and they, listening back to it, they were like, "Wow, we can't believe we did this!" Like on the spot. That's amazing. So that was a very good highlight, because I had never done a songwriting workshop like that. Usually I'm coming with the piano or the guitar and it's theory and it's, structure and blah, blah, blah. And this was more about just finding what is meaningful to say. How would you want to say it? Does it feel like the summer? Does it feel like the autumn? What's like, setting these I don't know, like a mood and building from there. And it was really, really cool watching how they just like took it up like a sponge. It was really cool. Um, yeah, and I've also done another retreat with some up and coming artists who were a part of an incubator project that lasts for 6 months, helping them to get their careers on track and launched. Some of them were new Canadians, so a lot of immigrants and people of color. And again, used music of the circle quite a bit, vocal improvisation quite a bit. And it was, yeah, it just allows people a different way of experiencing themselves and experiencing each other. And it's really a privilege and an honor to like be witnessing how it changes people. It was like super moving. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so those intercultural spaces, which sometimes maybe they're not so easy to enter actually or to think about. So I wonder if some people might also have, some kind of questions before entering or engaging with these themes and spaces and people from very distinct different backgrounds. So I almost wonder if we can pull the lens out and maybe you shared a wonderful definition of actually what politics means for you earlier.
Oh
So
yeah.
I wonder if we could come back to it in a way that we're kind of transitioning really to now some questions, that people can ask themselves and the questions that you ask yourself, uh,
Hmm.
these larger topics of social justice, let's say. And yeah, what can we reflect on and how can that help us to maybe reframe what that means for us and where does it fit, yeah, in our practice. So maybe we start with the definition and then we go to
Yeah,
the.
yeah, for sure. So I was saying to you earlier that, yeah, a lot of times people shy away from using the word politics, or, I don't follow politics, I don't do politics. So I was looking up the definition of politics, and the ancient Greek definition is from affairs of the city is the set of activities that are associated with decisions in groups or other forms of power relations among individuals, such as the distribution of status or resources. And so, you and I joked, like, of course we're a part of politics. Like it's literally it's present everywhere. It's how we engage with each other, um, and how we set up structures to exist or to agree on how things should unfold. And politics is not necessarily only about governments. It's also the way that we are in our spaces, whether it's 5 people, whether it's 30 people. Politics are present. So I was saying to you also that I am in a phase of life of not being prescriptive, but ask more about asking questions of people and especially of myself. So I think about positionality. So where am I position wise relative to the perceived higher or lower status of someone else? And just having that awareness, like, oh, I'm coming of a place of privilege. I am Canadian. I am cisgendered. Just noticing where I am, and that awareness can inform how I choose to show up. Noticing who speaks and who listens and who tells the stories is something that I think we can all think about. Who is telling this story? Um, who has not had a chance to speak yet? And I'm talking like generally, and I'm also talking literally, meaning it's figurative and it's literal at the same time. Uh, Noticing in our groups, in our communities, noticing who is present, who, as in what groups are present, who feels safe to show up with us, who consistently comes, and who doesn't come. and why might it be that they don't come? Why do they not feel drawn to what we're doing, or perhaps safe enough to come to what we're doing? And again, you don't even necessarily need to answer the question, just asking yourself and being open to thinking about why that might be, and if there's anything that you might be able to do to make more room for more people. you know I also said, just, oh, I don't think I said this, but I think about duality a lot, and binaries, and trying to avoid hard lines, just making a more space for many truths at the same time.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing those. Yeah, to finish off our conversation, I almost wonder about, yeah, what kind of gives you joy and hope in all of these larger questions? Because I think sometimes we also avoid them because they are so overwhelming. And thinking about society within the social constraints of systems and everything that's going on out there. And sometimes you almost want to feel like I have my music space and it's, the place where that doesn't exist. And it's which can be a truth as well in its own right. But when interweaving these complexities for you, what kind of gives you hope and joy and keeps you coming back, to the intention of interweaving social change, social justice into your music and life?
Yeah, I think it's true. When we think about the bigger systems, I'm like, I don't know.
Thank you.
I'm not
Oh,
even,
no.
I can't. I can't. So for me, it has to be focused on like what's actually alive in front of me, whether it's in a virtual space or a literal space. But that's where I have power and influence, and you have power and influence. We all do, So for me, watching how quickly things can change when you plant the seeds early in a group, and you set the dynamic early, and you set the intentions early in a group, and you keep building from that place, watching how relationships can form, and how it opens space to have conversations that are hard, but people are able to hold them because you've built that space and that trust. That's where my focus is to be local to, and my locality is sometimes in Canada, sometimes now in Brazil, but like local as in with the people that I actually am in community with. Um, and I think we're playing the long game with social change. It's not happening today. We're planting seeds today that hopefully next generation, the generation after, hopefully we've made some strides. And also it can be joyful. Like, I don't think that social change has to be like, oh my God, it's so hard. Like, I don't know. For me, I think it's kind of cool being with other humans, and finding ways to make their life feel more meaningful, and vice versa. Like, this is not drudgery for me. This is joyful, beautiful stuff. So I think, yeah, for me, a long time ago, I changed the dial on what social justice isn't drudgery work for me. It's like, yeah, I'm ready to show up for you. How are you, my friend? It's joyful. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's quite a wonderful ending. Is there anything
Yeah.
else left unsaid? Anything else you would like to share? What I'm sure you're gonna return and speak to the community of the well and other.
No, I think we were quite thorough. No, we fit in a lot of things. I just want to thank you for, yeah, opening this conversation, and it's been good chatting with you, not just today, but when we've had our various chats online. Yeah, I thank you.
Thank you, Joni. Thank you, everyone that was listening. We also hope we can create more spaces to discuss this with other members of the well. So
Mm.
there will be opportunities on the way. If you're interested in this topic, just get in touch, at info@thewellvocal.com, or message us on socials and just say, this really resonates. I want to find out more. I want to, talk about it more. And I think we can then also go to this global concept, which is local plus global.
Yeah,
So how
exactly.
very rooted, but then at the same time has this web of connections and exchange that really kind of can go all around the globe. So,
Yeah.
Joni, for joining me. Thank you for everything that was shared, and see you next time.
See you next time.
Okay, have a wonderful winter.
Thank you. I'm spending it in Brazil, so it will
Oh
be
yeah,
wonderful.
oh, that's good. Nothing to worry about. Have a
Take care.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.